even though the Cardinals won 7 in a row and swept the Cubs and swept the Yankees, I'm sure you got some stuff to complain about. So 855-282-8255. I go to Cards Talk today. One of the first things I see, over at STL today. I love Cards Talk. I'm not ripping anybody. I love it. It's entertaining as hell. There are a couple things. One of all, it's like, well, Paul DeYoung can't play shortstop. That's number one. And then there was another theme about, like, well, don't get too excited. The Yankees didn't have Stanton or Rizzo. So, everybody calm down. Okay. Can't be happy. It's all right to be a little happy sometimes. And when the team plays bad, if they go from 7 in a row to start losing games, then you got plenty of material to work with. But go with the vibe for now, fellas. Go with the vibe. It's okay. It's okay to be happy for a couple, 3 hours. It's all right.
I agree. Good call. Yeah, it's all right. Smile a little bit.
Smile a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah.
It'll be all right. Everything's going to be all right because surely there will be some screw-ups and questionable decisions and disappointing performances. You will have plenty to work with. Even if the Cardinals do win the division, you'll still have plenty to work with because then you can turn your attention to, well, I mean, anybody could win that division. So you'll have plenty. Just bask in the happiness of your fellow Cardinals fans. You 10% or 15% of people that just can never be happy about anything. Just go with it. It's all right. Follow me. I'm negative. I holler. I rip people.
Yeah.
So even I can be happy for a while with this kind of stuff. All right, I got that out of my way. But no, I'm like mostly joking there. But we would like to hear from you. 855-282-8255. Do you view the Cardinals differently than you did, say, 10 days ago? Maybe even fewer than 10 days ago, really. Because it was last Saturday in Washington where they fell four games behind the Brewers. And you're like, oh, come on. They let a game get away, against a really bad Washington team that Saturday night. They let a lead get away. And the Brewers had won 4 in a row, and you're like, oh, man, is this team ever going to put anything together? Well, yeah, the answer is yeah. They haven't lost since that night. And really a really dramatic flip in the standings, Jim. We've talked about it, but just to reset, the Cardinals have gone from 4 games out to 2 games up from Sunday to Sunday. That's all it took, from Sunday to Sunday. And that's a really dramatic turnaround. Yeah, and the Brewers have a lot to do with it by playing bad ball. I mean, losing 5 out of 6 at home to the Pirates and the Reds over that time, and 6 out of 7 overall. And they're not the same team, at least emotionally or in harmony or whatever you want to call it, since they traded Josh Hader. But, yes, it's true. The Cardinals were able to catapult into first place for a significant downturn by the Milwaukee Brewers. But what has happened in the past when the Brewers have been in a downturn, where they had gone a losing streak at one point, they lost 7 in a row, whatever it was. The Cardinals have not fully taken advantage of those opportunities when presented with them during the course of the season. When Milwaukee screws up and Milwaukee's down for a while, the Cardinals haven't exploited it. To an extent, yes. Fully, no. Not even close. Well, this time, obviously, they have fully taken advantage of it by winning 7 in a row. And it really depends on how long can they keep it up, if they can keep it up. The schedule, we'll get into all this. The schedule, we talk about it a lot, but it really takes a turn that should give the Cardinals a huge advantage for at least until you get into September. And there's a West Coast trip where the Cardinals play the Padres 3 out there and then the Dodgers 3 out there. But Milwaukee's got a brutal schedule up ahead. I mean, like starting now, basically. And if you want to listen, Will Leach and I talked about that in this week's new edition of Seeing Red, the podcast that focuses on the Cardinals. Seeing Red is online for you now, thanks to Jim Hewer, who always gets that thing ready to go for us and gets it on 590thefan.com. 590thefan.com. You can also follow Seeing Red on Twitter at seeingredpod.com, or you can fetch it not only at 590 The Fan through the 590 The Fan app or just the site. You can also fetch it wherever it is that you get your podcasts, like Apple or just, you know what I'm talking about, man. So, and thanks for getting that online, Jim. I got the notice from Mrs. Bernie, who always informs me when the podcast is ready because she listens to it herself. So she even said something. Jim's always fast. He was even faster today. Yes, you were. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, tell her thank you, because I also use that as, like a bit of information, because I know if it's not up, then I know there's an issue somewhere and I can go track it down. So tell her thank you for that. It's because every once in a while, sometimes you'll work on things and you'll put it aside, it's done, it's over with, and you find out, oh, there's a problem with the system and it's got to be fixed. So I always am glad to hear that Mrs. Bernie has noticed it's up, and then it's up and running.
Yeah.
And you got a text on here, say, hey, Bernie, I really liked your podcast. First time I had a chance to listen. Thank you for that.
Oh, good. No, thank you. Thank you very much. Will does too. So we're pretty wound up today. Although we did in the midst of all the very warranted happy talk. I mean, happy talk's great as long as it's justified. We did take a pause from the happy talk to basically blast Dakota Hudson some more. So for those of you who don't want too much of the sugary, sweet, happy talk, we threw a little vinegar in there,
Along that line, real quick, I thought a little bit more about something you and I touched on. They really don't. I'm really starting to believe what we kind of touched on. They don't really like dealing with the young pitchers up here. They really want guys that are...
I don't blame him in this case, though.
Well, that's true, but, I was like, Stratton, yeah, he's 31 years old. He fits exactly what they want. They're not going to mess...
Right.
I still would like to see Thompson here, but he's not. Instead, we still got McFarland. I don't know if he's even pitched since the All-Star break, but he's still around here.
And that's see, here we go. But it's a legitimate thing to beef about. I mean, look, they owed him for the season $2.5 million. I mean, much of that is gone. What they owe him, so it would be a drop in the bucket at this point. It's not like it's like, oh well, they got to eat $8 million. It's not that at all. It's probably down to $1 million or so. And again, they did that. They did that earlier with who was it? Aaron Brooks. So they've eaten. Oh, Nick Whitgren.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so they've eaten some salary. I don't get it. Why would you willingly play shorthanded? When
right?
And I'm not really blasting Marmol for this at all in terms of, they sometimes when the Cardinals manager and the pitching coach, they talk about their pitching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, you get the feeling they think they're the only staff in baseball that has problems with the pitching staff about not getting enough innings from their starters. I mean, the way they go on and on and on about it, you'd think that they really were the only team in the majors that has this issue. Most of them do. Well, if this is something y'all are going to complain about constantly, and you know what, go ahead and complain. I appreciate candor, Well, why are you playing a man short in your bullpen? You're not going to use him unless it's one of these 11-1 games. You're not going to use him. So what's the point? Why not have Zach Thompson up here pitching? As I suggested to Will, the way out of the Hudson thing is if they don't want to dump Hudson, and they probably shouldn't, you bring Zach Thompson up here. You designate T.J. McFarland for assignment, which means bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
And if you must keep Hudson up here, you make him the pitcher under glass who is only to be used in an emergency. In other words, when you got nobody else left, one of these like 13-inning games or something, that, or B, it's like a 13-2 game either way, you're winning or losing, and then it's a good time for Dakota to give us a few innings. And as I was joking with Will, but maybe there's actually some truth in this, it's kind of like it depends on how your parents raised you. But I had my mother, who was usually the enforcer in the house. She would always go with that time-tested and true method of, you go to your room and you're going to stay there because you got to think about this. I'm going to make you think about this for a long time. You're going to sit in there and think about it, and then we'll see what your attitude's like when you come out. And that always worked. I mean, I would resist, but it worked. And that's what Hudson needs. It's like, dude, How many freaking times do we have to tell you, you got to speed it up? You can't work so slowly. It's bad for your pitching. It's bad for your defense. Your teammates are tired of it. I mean, seriously, Jim, how many times do they have to try to drill this in this guy's head? And he never follows the advice, the very good, the perfect advice that they give him. Why would you continue to annoy yourselves and endure that kind of irritation from a guy who clearly, A, is unwilling to do what you tell him to do, or B, is not smart enough to implement it? Either way, you really need to do better. You need to have a pitcher up here that's going to work with you.
I'm there with you. You made me chuckle about the room thing because I had the same thing as a kid. Go in there and think about what you did and don't come out for a while. Did I come out? No.
No.
You think about it a little bit longer.
You keep thinking about what I told you.
Don't turn that radio on. But as far as the Dakota thing, I mean, it's almost to the point where and John Mozeliak is always going to be the most patient individual. He's always a little more patient than you think he should be.
Yes.
But I'm kind of to the point, Bernie, where maybe this offseason, it's time to move him. Because I don't know how many more, how much more you can wait for him to figure this thing out. He's not this same pitcher, but it reminds me of the frustration the Cardinals had with Jason Marquis.
Yeah,
they knew what they needed him to do to be successful, and you'd see it, and then he'd revert back to his old ways. You'd be like, Jason, come on, dude. When you're right and you do what we tell you to do, you can be really good in this league. And he just never figured that part out. That's my when I'm thinking Dakota Hudson is heading down that road right now.
They Oli Marmol, I don't have the quotes in front of me, but he did not attempt to gloss over his dissatisfaction with Hudson Friday night, and I don't blame him because we're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And his last 7 starts, by the way, in that sense, remember he had those 2 consecutive starts where he went to 7 innings and maybe a run. He was really, really good, and you thought, okay, well, he's turning the corner, I guess. No, 7 starts since that those 2 really good starts in a row. 7 starts, he's got a 6.03 ERA. So why are they wasting time with him? I don't get it. Zach Thompson, look, I think the Cardinals are in great shape to win the division. I really do, especially you dig into the schedule a little bit. In fact, they can deliver a pretty painful blow this weekend when the Brewers come to Busch Stadium for 3 games. But I still, the record will show, especially if something goes wrong, the record will show that they had a really talented guy and someone that they have been touting all along as being a really good pitcher in development. They were really excited about him. So they bring him to the major leagues, and he makes 1 start, and the start was okay. He looked good, but the pitching line wasn't good. But he did such a heck of a job for them in the bullpen, and it is just amazing to me the way that they have underutilized him in favor of running guys out there who aren't nearly as good as he is. I don't understand it. You have a farm system. Everyone raves about you, the way you draft and develop pitching. You have one of the guys that is a personification of that, and he can't get a baseball in his hand during a regular season game. I simply don't get it. Even though every time he's pitched in relief, he's either been lights out good or good. Maybe 1 or 2 that have been like, it was okay. Mm-hmm. But no, you're gonna keep T.J. McFarland sitting around, and you're gonna keep Hudson in the rotation. I don't get it. As much as I appreciate what Mozeliak did at the trade deadline, I really did. We'll talk about that too. I really, really did. There's still this weird thing where even when they've won 7 in a row, guys like us, Jim, and I think I'm pretty reasonable. I'm pretty rational when it comes to the good and the bad and being fair. Even after winning 7 in a row, there's a little question in my back of my head where I'm like, are you really going 100% out to win? Like in terms of the roster, you're dressing out for each game. Are you really like 100% in on this? And that's a shame. No one should have to ask that question.
I agree with you 100%. Like yesterday's game, that would have been a game where you think Thompson could have came in and kind of calmed it down for a little bit, give you 2 good innings. I mean, yesterday's game was fun to watch. It was long, but the back and forth. But if you're a fan of your team, you're going, "Hey, if we just get a guy to come in here and calm this down for an inning and a half, I think we'll be all right." And that's what they needed. Thompson would have been a perfect get, I think, for yesterday's game. So.
No, I agree, and it's mind-boggling. It really is. Well, it's been a great ride and a great vibe to ride 7-0 and then 6-0 homestand, and some of the highlights of what we've seen is that John Mozeliak goes out and gets 2 starting pitchers at a relatively low cost, and both of them were fantastic. If you just the sum of their work. Yeah, you'd like to have seen Jordan Montgomery maybe go 6 innings, but the heat, the heat and humidity got to him. I think it got to a lot of guys, and even he said, like, man, I was used to this living in South Carolina, but I haven't had to pitch in this kind of humidity, so it got to me, and I'll be better prepared next time, and I respect that. But look, the bottom line is like those guys, their first starts as Cardinals. If you combine it, we're talking about 11 innings and 1 earned run, and we're talking about only a smattering of hits, and we're talking about only a couple walks, and we're talking about just not letting people get on base. I mean, it was really, really good. And it's like these guys, and I hate to bring Dakota Hudson back into this when I'm talking about something positive, but it does underline the point. Jose Quintana is a good ground ball pitcher, and Jordan Montgomery's a good ground ball pitcher. We talked about that at the time of the trades. But it's almost like these guys turned it up a notch. They're like, just look at this defense. It's absurd. I got the greatest defensive third baseman in Major League history, arguably. He's going to win his 10th consecutive Gold Glove at the end of this year, playing third. I got Tommy Edman, who's been fantastic at second base, Gold Glove winner, and he's good enough to win a Gold Glove easily, either position this year. And Paul DeYoung, who's been an above-average shortstop for a long time. And I got the guy over there at first base that'll pretty much corral any wild throw that they hit him with. And so why do I don't need to be fancy here. Throw strikes, pound it low in the zone, and get a bunch of ground balls and enjoy the work of the people behind me and show my gratitude. Hey, Dakota, are you watching?
Amen.
Do you have the brain power to watch this and learn from it? So I laughed at this stat this morning, Jim. Jordan Montgomery, who beat his old team, the one who traded him, and that had to be like a difficult start in a way. He got the butterflies out after the first inning, thanks to Arenado, turning a 5-4-3. Montgomery in that game, he ain't no dummy, man. In that game, his ground ball rate was 73%.
That's the way it's supposed to be. Super smart.
And Quintana was 55.5%. I mean, baseball people and even guys like me try to make this such a complicated. It's not complicated. If you can pitch ground balls and keep the ball down, keep it on the ground, this is the best place in Major League Baseball for you to pitch. So don't overcomplicate it. There's no reason to overthink it. And neither one of those guys did. So I thought that was fantastic. I mean, they fit right in and then some. And then you have, the Paul DeYoung story, which is just fantastic. And we were talking about it with Will Leach. I don't really care about his batting average, and people need to sort of get that out of the way. It's a hang up. Look, I repeat politely. It's kind of politely. It's not 1969 or 1972 anymore. Okay. You don't judge players like strictly on batting average, where you look at their batting average. Oh, he's only hitting 170. He's terrible. Well, what about if he's drawing walks and getting on base at a very healthy rate? What if he's slugging extremely well? So you're going to rule the guy a failure because he doesn't have a good batting average, but he does have a really good on-base percentage and a really good slugging percentage. I'll take the on-base percentage and the slugging. I'll use that to define him, especially in today's baseball. And Paul DeYoung has done nothing except get on base and hit for power since he returned. But everyone who wants him to be Tony Gwynn or Rod Carew or whatever the hell it is they want, living in the past, you can do that. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. This guy's gotten big hit after big hit after big hit at timely moments. Friday night he wins the game on a double after, I'd say 90% of the fan base, maybe even me, was saying, Ollie, what are you doing? You got to pinch hit for him here. against a right-hander, a tough right-hander. You got to pinch. You got to get the left. You got to get a left-handed bat up. What are you doing? He stayed with him, and DeYoung hits the 2-run double to win the game. And then Sunday, just an absolute brawl of a game, punch and counterpunch. He ends it with that 3-run homer. Look, I don't really give a damn if he's hitting some ground balls and his batting average isn't climbing real high. This guy's walked, during the homestand, he walked like 6 or 7 times. He was on base a lot. And he hit 3 doubles and 3 homers. So what are we complaining about exactly? I mean, you need, especially if you're hitting a guy down in the second half of your lineup, if a guy's giving you power and he's giving you some walks, I'm good. I don't expect him to be like the peak form version of Troy Tulowitzki or something, okay? He's not. I don't expect Barry Larkin. If he does what he can do and he does what he's supposed to do, I'm good with that. This is a cliche, but it really is true, at least so far. I wanted to make sure I repeated that. That cliche about, this is almost like making a trade to add a bat to your lineup. It kind of is, even to the point that you look at the timing and when they brought him up right before the trade deadline. I mean, they are what are they? They're 6-1 or 7-1 since they plugged him back into the lineup. And yes, he's made a lot of contributions. And yes, there have been a couple, 3-4 games where not much happens. But if you wait and you're patient, you know that he's developing into a guy. Again, I don't know if he can keep it up, but so far he's that guy that it doesn't matter if he goes like 0 for 6. The next game he's going to do something big, or he's going to help you set up a scoring inning by drawing a walk. But I got no complaints whatsoever with the way he's performed since he came back.
He's doing damage, I should say, and that's what you want from him. Just give me some damage. To your point, Friday night he came up in that spot. I was like, man, he looked really bad on those 2 strikeouts earlier in the game.
He did,
and I was like, oh, and look, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, oh boy, did the magic just leave the bat? What do we look? And then he hits that double. I'm like, no, he's still got it. Let him play. Let him do his damage. You deal with the strikeouts, to your point. And he came up with the big bomb yesterday to put the game out of reach and just gave you some breathing room.
He had that good slide to make it 8-6.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, I mean, and by the way, he can play shortstop. So anyone wants to say
I think he's pretty good at it.
He's okay. He's more than okay. And every time it's hit to him, you go, oh, yeah, he's got it. Good, solid, steady. We're good.
Some guy on that online message board was talking about, the problem is if you just look at him, you just really have to look at him. He's got really heavy legs. And I'm like, what? He's got really heavy legs. What?
Okay. It's a pretty good hitting base, I can tell you that.
Is this too much alcohol while watching baseball? I mean, Paul DeYoung's heavy-legged? I mean, that's why the haters, you hear that I'm laughing, but the haters just crack me up. It's like they just imagine things. It's not bad. Instead of evaluating the actual performance, they just conjure up like fantasies that only they can see. It's just bizarre, man.